Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Clark, research analyst with Money Markets here with your weekly marijuana market update. Now, do make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel and get notified each and every time we post up a new video. We do that almost every day of the week. We've got a lot of great weekly video features on our channel, including Ask Adam Anything. This is where I get to sit down with Chief Investment Strategist Adam O'Dell and ask him any question, whether it be from you or from me, and get his insight into the stock market. We have Investing with Charles, where Green Zone Fortune's co-editor Charles Sizemore and I talk about all things related to the stock market and the economy, including comparing stocks to give you the best investment advice. And there's the Bull and the Bear podcast. This is our weekly podcast where I show you the trends and the analysis that moves the market. And all these are series on our YouTube channel. Plus, we're looking at adding a new weekly series, potentially on emerging sectors of the market like biotech, artificial intelligence, etc. So make sure you stay tuned for that as we roll out details on what that new series is going to be. Now, today in our marijuana market update, I'm going to talk about a few things. One, I'm going to talk about what I see as the next big battleground for cannabis companies. And then I'm going to answer kind of a fun question from a viewer. Now, the next state cannabis companies are going to be salivating over won't be California or New York or New Jersey, or even Michigan. And you would think that would be likely so because these are states that all have adult use legislation on the books and their sales are all fairly robust. However, cannabis companies, I think, are going to be waiting on pins and needles for adult use legalization in the state of Florida. That's where the biggest battleground for cannabis companies is going to be in the near future, in my opinion. And here's why. First, it's important to note that only medical cannabis is legal here in Florida. The process for a company to get a license to sell in the Sunshine State is not only stringent, but it's also very costly. Now, examining the current operators in the state of Florida shows that Trulieve Cannabis Corporation is the largest supplier of medical cannabis in Florida. About 43.1% of milligram sales in the state were sold through Trulieve. The next largest operator is Liberty Health, or AYR Wellness Incorporated, with only 5.6% of the state's milligram sales across 42 dispensaries. Trulieve's share of the state's smokable flower is a little more than 50%, which is where it's been over the last 18 months. It really hasn't varied that much. That's a percentage that is considerably higher than any other cannabis operator in any other state. Hardly any other cannabis operators come close to that kind of smokable flower percentage in any state where cannabis is legal, either medically, adult use, or both. Something else to note here is that AYR is buying Liberty. Cresco Labs Incorporated is acquiring Bluma Wellness, which is also known as One Plant Florida. And Planet 13 Holdings is entering the market by buying Harvest Health and Recreation's vertical medical marijuana license. MedMen Enterprises also received a $100 million new equity build to expand into areas like Florida, and it opened a new dispensary in Orlando in September. And what this all shows is that Trulieve does have a corner on the Florida market, and it is a sizable market to be sure. While it might be slightly older data, New Frontier Data, which is a cannabis data company, found that total cannabis sales in Florida could reach as high as $2.5 billion by 2025. Now, this is all taking into account the assumption that adult use legalization will happen in the next year or so, and that's still kind of up in the air here in Florida. Regardless, that's a 127% jump in sales from 2021 to 2025, suggesting Florida's cannabis market is ripe for the picking. Now, if we translate that into market share, New Frontier Data suggests Florida's total share of the legal cannabis market will be more than 10% by 2025. Again, assuming adult use cannabis is legalized. That will be more than 10% of all cannabis sales in the U.S., including California, New York, New Jersey, and Michigan. And while Trulieve is still the biggest player and by far in Florida, it still leaves about 50% of this large market on the table for others to take. And as the market expands, Trulieve may continue its dominance, but the available market share is likely to get higher, leaving even more out there for other cannabis companies to scoop up. Now, when the state does legalize adult cannabis, it's possible Florida becomes one of the top 3 markets in the U.S., which would actually make it larger in size than a lot of countries that have cannabis legal right now. Now, just analyzing the state's medical market can show the growth potential here. Currently, according to state data, there are 371 dispensaries here in Florida. That's a 33% rise from the 278 dispensaries the state had a year ago. What's more is that the number of qualified patients getting their medical marijuana card, which is the card you need to be able to buy medical marijuana here in the state, jumped 46% to 619,278 during that same time. So now there are actually more patients per store in Florida today than there were a year ago. Trulieve does have the market corner. We've talked about that, but other MSOs are actively expanding in the state. Liberty Health added 16 new dispensaries over the last 12 months, while Move, MUV, tacked on 12 new stores. Curaleaf added only 4 new dispensaries, but has suggested they want to have at least 60 by the end of 2022. Now imagine if and when adult use cannabis becomes legal. But even if it doesn't right away, Florida is still a prime spot for cannabis operators to eye profitable expansion, as long as they're willing to undertake the expense of getting a license here. Now, onto a viewer question. Ansley, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I apologize if I'm not. Recently asked me a very interesting question. She said, let's imagine the SAFE Act does not get passed alongside the Defense Authorization Spending Bill. This continues to stall for 12 months, and in between, more states legalize. Will institutions stay away in terms of investing, thus keeping stock prices steady, or will there be a new catalyst we haven't seen yet, which will move these stocks? Ansley. Well, great question, Ansley, or Ainsley. Again, sorry for mispronouncing your name if I am, and I undoubtedly probably am. Watch out for an email from my team to get you hooked up with some money and markets gear, like maybe this shirt right here, or maybe a hat or something like that. Now, for context, the SAFE Act would lift restrictions put on financial institutions for doing business with cannabis companies. In short, it would allow cannabis companies to apply for things like extended lines of credit and so forth, whereas now they can't. Every time they want money, they have to go and apply individually every single time, whereas an extended line of credit allows you to draw on the credit, pay it off, continue to draw on it over time without having to reapply. That's just one of the many perks that cannabis companies would have if the SAFE Act does go through. Now, the House of Representatives did tack the SAFE Act onto the National Defense Authorization Act, which is a bill that sets policy for defense and authorizes spending based on Pentagon priorities. The NDAA passed the House with bipartisan support, and is a bill that almost always, in fact, it always gets approved, hence why House members elected to tack on cannabis banking onto that measure. However, the Senate is another matter, as Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York elected to halt passage of any cannabis banking until more social justice reform related to cannabis is approved. And this means more expungement and things like that, which that is not part of the SAFE Act. So you've got an act that is ready to go, but the Senate Majority Leader said, we're going to pump the brakes until we get more social justice reform on cannabis before we move into the banking side of things. Now, Ansley's question is an interesting one, supposing that the SAFE Act is stripped from the NDAA and lingers for months, which is a possibility here. I think the short answer is that in this scenario, cannabis stocks will see very little upside movement, but the potential for more downside activity. The SAFE Act is paramount for cannabis companies to obtain capital for operations and for expansion. Without the ability to have extended lines of credit, companies can only pay for operations and look into potential expansion with the profits that they make. They don't have the ability to find outside sources of capital. So it's one of the main reasons why cannabis companies struggle with profits. They're spending their profits to pay for things like normal business operations and for potential expansion. And these are things that normal businesses can pay for by accessing capital from a bank. Now, passing the SAFE Act in some form would give investors a spark to put capital into a company, because these companies would have access to traditional business capital from banks. So if the SAFE Act languishes in Congress and is not passed as part of the NDAA, there's little change for cannabis companies here. If they want to expand, they're still going to have to dip into their profits, thus trimming their bottom line. And as I said in my video last week, the cannabis industry is looking for any kind of positive headline to spark prices up. This would certainly do it, and not doing it is going to leave things just kind of in limbo, if you will. So until that happens, you can pretty much expect the status quo of volatility with little upside for cannabis right now. Now, that's not like they're going to say that every cannabis company is going to tank or is going to trade flat. That's not the case at all. What I've seen here is that any headline positive for a cannabis company can boost its stock price fairly well, even if it doesn't attract broader market support in cannabis. So now, again, thank you for your question, Ainsley. I do appreciate that. And if you do have a question about a cannabis stock or the market, you can email me. That email address is feedback@moneyandmarkets.com. We're going to put that right down there. Or you can comment below here on our YouTube channel. Send us a question, or maybe even you want to video yourself asking a question. Love to do that. I've recently found that TikTok does this very well with stitching. We would probably look at doing the same thing. And if we do use that, we're going to send you some free Money and Markets gear, like maybe a t-shirt like this, or maybe a hat like I have right over here. Here's a hat, just one of the many that we have, sweatshirts, and other things like that. Don't forget about all the great content we have here on our YouTube channel. It's the best investment insight, and it is yours for free. We're already planning our next live chat event here on YouTube as well, so check back to find out more. The last ones we've done have been overwhelmingly successful. We love doing them, and we want to do even more, so make sure you check back here often for when we're going to do our next live chat. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'll give you even more insights, not just into the cannabis market, but the broader market as well. You can find me on Twitter at Invest with Matt C. That's Invest with Matt C, all one word, on Twitter. Thank you for all of you who watch our videos every week. We do it because we want to bring you the best insights into not just the cannabis market, but the broader market in general. If you do have a cannabis stock you'd like me to look at, again, that email address is feedback@moneymarkets.com, or post down below here on our YouTube channel. Also, check out Money Markets each and every day for content that provides safe, sound, smart, simple, profitable investment information for your portfolio. I'm Matt Clark, research analyst for Money Markets, and your host of the weekly marijuana market update. Until next time, everyone, safe trading.